These are the chilling final 24 hours of XXXTentacion's life. On June 18, 2018, X woke up at around 6 a.m. and started the day like any other by logging onto League of Legends to get in a game with Craig Zan, who he had played with the entire night before. But X wasn't feeling it. Something was distracting him, and he decided to log off after only 22 minutes of playtime. Instead, it was time to head into the studio to do what he loved, making music. So, at around 8 a.m., X started working on the beat for a track he had recorded just 2 days earlier named Chase, Glass Shards. This would end up becoming the last piece of music that he ever made before passing away, and an edited version was later released by his team. For the next 6 hours, X was locked in. It was just him in the studio making what he believed was his next hit, and spending time with his family, his friends, and his girlfriend at the time, Genesis.
I need you to put your head back.
Sure.
But then, Genesis started to feel sick. However, not with an illness, she was nervous. At around 3 p.m. that day, the couple had an ultrasound scheduled at the doctor's office to find out the gender of their baby. At the time, the pregnancy was a closely guarded secret, and X was extremely nervous about it. So he decided to skip the appointment with Genesis and instead FaceTimed his mother to ask if she would accompany him to a motorcycle dealership in Deerfield Beach, Florida. That FaceTime call lasted only 2 minutes and led to a short argument. X's mom couldn't believe that he was skipping out on an ultrasound and went to the doctor with Genesis herself. By 3:20, X was on his way to Riva Motorsport, now accompanied by his step-uncle, and he decided that he wanted to purchase his bike in cash. So, he stopped at a Bank of America in Coconut Creek along the way. While he was there, he pulled out $50,000 in cash, all while driving his $150,000 BMW i8, wearing a gold chain and carrying a $2,000 Louis Vuitton bag. But little did he know, he had unwanted attention, and after he left the bank to arrive at Riva by 3:30, X and his uncle were being followed by an SUV with 4 men inside. Once they arrived at Riva, X and his uncle went inside, and 2 of the 4 men from the SUV got out to see if X was the driver of the i8. It turned out one of the 4 men in that SUV had recognized Jase's car after bumping into him at a probation office earlier in the year and now planned to rob him. While X was shopping, fans spotted him and came inside. They started taking pictures and chopping it up. But while that all happened, the 2 men that had followed him walked right past X and purchased 2 masks from the dealership. At 3:40, X was browsing the dealership with its owner, and one of the last known pictures of him while he was still alive was taken. By 3:55, X had decided he didn't want anything from the dealership, so he left, and those 2 men that had followed him earlier were nowhere to be found. At 3:57, he was pulling out of the dealership, but then that same black SUV pulled up and blocked the exit before 2 armed masked men jumped out of it. Jase's uncle immediately fled the car, while there was a short struggle between Jase and the 2 robbers. After a struggle, Jase gave up and let them go with his Louis Vuitton bag that still had $50,000 in cash inside. Jase thought it was over, but then, as the dust settled, he looked into the eyes of one of his robbers, and the man shot him multiple times before fleeing with his accomplices. The dealership called for help, but it was too late. After being rushed to the hospital, Jase was announced dead only an hour after the shooting. The 4 men behind the murder, Michael Boatwright, the man who shot X, Trayvon Newsom, Dedrick Williams, and Robert Allen, 4 local gang affiliates, were all eventually found and charged. Rest in peace, XXXTentacion.